mine, and a lot of you may know that I went to Hawaii this past summer for about 3 months. I'm going to kind of backtrack to this past summer. Originally, I've gone to Peru 3 times. I've been to Panama, and I've been out of the country a lot. But then the year I came back from Peru and Panama, I was just praying, like, what next? What do you have for me? And we were sitting in my living room, and Mom was like, have you ever thought about serving in Hawaii? I'm like, no, I have not. She's like, you might want to talk to Daryl and Teresa McCain, because they live there, as a lot of you know, and they work with the disaster relief and with the BCM down there. So I gave them a call, and I was praying about it a lot, and sure enough, I got connected with North American Mission Board, and I went to Hawaii my first time this past summer. And I got on the plane, and I was still wondering, why am I going to Hawaii? Like, why to Hawaii? It's an amazing place. Everyone has everything they could ever want, and I had no idea why I was going. Or I didn't even really know what I would be doing there. So I got off the plane, and I met up with the pastor of a church called Pawa'a. The church is called Pawa'a. The pastor's name is RJ. So I found out that I was going to be working at this church called Pawa'a, and I was going to work with the children's ministry and the youth group. And I'm like, whoa, all right, I'm gonna be working at a church ahead of the youth and children's ministry. I get to the church, and it's a house. It's just a small house, and I really didn't know what to expect. So I get there on Sunday, and everybody comes in at 11 o'clock, and we have a huge potluck, and then around like 12:30, then we have our church service. So it's kind of a good deal every Sunday, So they start by doing worship after the lunch, and they started singing, and it blew me away. I've never heard worship as amazing as there. Like, it was in a house. There was maybe like 120 people crammed into this living room, the outdoor, and the kitchen, and they were giving it their all, and they were singing and giving praise to God no matter where they were or no matter their conditions. It was really cool to see how authentic and how on fire they were for God. So that was really cool. And this church has been around for about 3 or 4 years now, and it's grown so much, and it's reached a lot of people. People ask me all the time, like, Malachi, isn't Hawaii more of like a vacation? Isn't it more like, you get the beach every day, you get the mountains and the views and everything? Yeah, you get all that, and it's wonderful, but that's not the reason I go. It's amazing, and I love it, but a lot of people don't know is that in Hawaii, it is very, very multicultural, and there's so many different religions going on. You could go down the street and you could see a Buddhist temple. You could go down and see a Mormon church, or a Catholic church, or a Baptist church, or there's anything you can think of right at your fingertips. And I started looking around and I'm like, wow, what a mission field this is going to be. And the more that I was down there, I was realizing that so many people think they have it all. They have the island, they have the beaches, they have all of the beauty, but the one thing a lot of them don't have is Christ. So ministry down there is kind of really hard if they don't really know the gospel, and a lot of them just don't want it, and it's really sad. Anyway, back at Pawa'a, I started with the children's group, and to start out, we had about 3 kids, and I had 2 leaders with me, Rachel and Anna Claire. Anna Claire's from Louisiana, and we started with the children's group. It was kind of like a backyard Bible study. We had 3 kids, and we're like, wow, this is good. Hopefully we'll get some more kids. We never know. And it was really good the first week, and we're like, all right, well, how can we reach out? How can we branch out and gather more people in? Well, right across the street from our church is this place called the Vancouver House, and it's kind of like our John 3:16. You have a lot of families down there, and most of them are from the island of Chuuk, and nobody really knows where that is. It's a small little island, and it's kind of sad. The Americans go to this island, and we test bombs there, and we do missile practices, so it causes all the people of Chuuk to move. So the government places all of them here in Hawaii, and they're in this Vancouver house, and a lot of them don't have jobs. So they're allowed to stay here for 2 years, and then after that 2 years they have to leave, and hopefully they have a job to support them enough to get a house. And if you know about Hawaii, the cost of living is it's insane. It's about close to $1,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. So it's really hard for them to get a good stable job enough to afford living. So through this past summer, we ended up having over 30 kids come to the children's ministry from the Vancouver house. So we started getting this good children's ministry going, and a lot of them come from families where there's lots of drugs involved, there's lots of drinking involved, and they're young kids, or really young kids, and some of them have tried drugs at the age of 10, some at the age of 11, and the kids' names are really kind of interesting. There's Aniki, Omu, Hani, Mimi, and there's this one boy named Effinson. And Effinson's he was 12 this past summer, and I guess RJ was telling me that he comes to the church sometimes, but he's really shy and kind of in a little shell, and he can't really get him out or to talk very much. So I kind of reached out to Effinson and like, hey, how you doing? I'm Malachi. He's like, I'm Effinson, and he was just really quiet. And I'm like, so what do you like to do? What do you like to do? He's like, well, I like basketball. So after church, sometimes we would go and play basketball. So the more I got to hang out with him, I got to get to know him a lot better. And he said that I asked him about God one day, and he said, yeah, I believe in God, but I don't have a Bible, and nobody really talks about God at my home or anything like that. And so I'm like, oh, okay, perfect opportunity. So we start hanging out more and start talking, and sure enough, he wants to become saved. So Kaini goes to Papa'a Church, and he started talking to Effinson, and he led him to Christ this past summer, which was really cool. And you could just tell Effinson's happiness through that. But he still didn't have a Bible or anything. So he had asked me, he said, Malachi, how can I get a Bible? I really want one. So we got him a Bible, and from the day he got it, he was on fire. He's like, oh, I want to read from the beginning all the way to the end in like 10 days. I'm like, ooh, okay, all right. That's great, but hang on. So every day after the children's ministry, anytime we had free time, he'd come running up to the house and be, Malachi, let's read. And so like, okay. So we sit down on the bench and we'd start reading. But he was so interested in Genesis and Revelation. He's like, let's read all through Revelation. Let's read Revelation. I'm like, oh no. Okay, all right. Pastor Andy, I need your help. No, but it was good. He had so many questions. He was like, so God's coming back, we're going to have a war and all the angels. I just don't get it. It sounds crazy. I'm like, yeah. So I said, all right, well, let's kind of start through the beginning. Let's read through Genesis. He's like, okay, that sounds good. So we started reading through Genesis, and he started learning how the everything was made in 7 days. He learned about Adam and Eve, and every day we would just go further and further and further. And he got so interested, and he'd go on Google sometimes, and he'd come back and he'd be like, Malachi, did you know that God's going to come back and all this craziness is going to happen, and there's an Antichrist? And I'm like, yeah, I know. And he's like, he was like asking all these questions. Some of them I just couldn't answer, and we were reading through Genesis, and he was so happy. One day he came to me and he said, Malachi, my mom saw that I had a Bible, and she was really curious, and so she started reading it, and now she's just reading it all the time. She just loves it. She wants to know more and more and more. And I said, well, why don't you bring her to church? That'd be really cool. And he's like, yeah, I don't think she'd come. I'm like, oh, well, why not? He said, well, she works all the time. A lot of the Chukis families, the mom and dad work, and the kids kind of have to take care of themselves and take care of their brothers and sisters. So she wasn't able to come to church. But he was able to talk to her more about what he's learning, and he was able to share the Bible with her. So we grew this really good relationship, and throughout the whole summer I was able to just disciple him and be there for him and try to answer as many questions as I could. And then when I had to leave, it was really hard. He said, "Malachi, why do you hate me?" And I said, "Why? I don't hate you. Why are you saying that?" He's like, "Well, you hate me. Why are you leaving me? Why are you going back?" And I didn't realize it, but a lot of the kids, they don't realize what unconditional love is. They don't get that from their families. So if they think that you leave, you just hate them, and that you're never going to see them again, and you don't want anything to do with them. So it was really hard, and I did the best I could to just explain, I live back home, in Oklahoma, and that's where my family is, and that's where I need to be, and I can't stay, it's really hard. And it took a lot to get that through his head, and so for a couple of days he wouldn't come over and he wouldn't talk, and I was like, I'm about to leave, I wanted to say bye to him, but the last day I left, he came to say goodbye. He came up to Papa and he came to say goodbye. He's like, "Malachi, I don't hate you. I love you. You're my brother, and I'm so thankful for you. And I'm gonna miss you a lot." It was really hard to leave, but I left, and I was super sad because you grow all these. And anybody who goes on a mission trip, you make these amazing relationships with the locals sometimes, and it's really hard to leave them. And so I get home, and I still stay in contact with the church. And a few months after I got back, Rachel had sent me a message, and she said, "Malachi, I really need to talk to you. It's about Evanson." I'm like, "Oh no." She said that throughout school, he had gotten into a fight, and he got expelled from school. And along with that, he's now homeless, and his whole family's homeless now, because he was at the Vancouver house, and his 2 years was up, and his mom was the only one that was working for the family of 5, and they couldn't afford the cost of living. So this past summer, we worked in the tent community called Kaka'ako, and people live on this long strip of the road, and they have tents set up, and they sleep there every night, and if they get asked to move, they have to move, and then they find a different location, still in Kaka'ako, but that's where Evanson was living. So I knew where he was living, and I knew that Kaka'ako was not really a safe place, so I was getting really worried. And he didn't have Facebook anymore, so there was no way to really contact him. So they asked me if I could just write him a letter and if they could give it to him, and so I did, and I just put in there, I'm praying for you, I know this situation is rough, but God has got this, and he's got a hold on you, and just continue to stay in the Word and be praying, and I was just encouraging him through this letter. And so I found out that I was going to get to go back this past Christmas, and knowing about Evanson, I was kind of like freaking out. I was like, when I see him, what am I going to say? How is it going to be? And so I get back, and it was the first Sunday, and I was in the kitchen cooking or making something for the potluck, and someone taps me on the shoulder, and I turn around, and it's Evanson, and he's smiling. He's like, "Malachi, you're back!" And I'm like, "Oh, Evanson!" It was like a big reunion. It was great, and he was just talking. We were talking, and kind of catching up with each other. And after church, me, Evanson, and someone else from the church, we went and got ice cream. From there, we kind of were talking about his situation and how home was and how everything was going. He said his head was down low. He's like, it's really rough and it's really sad. My dad, whenever he does get some money or however he gets it, he just goes and buys liquor and he just drinks, and he gets really mean, and it's not really good, and sometimes he gets in fights. And he was saying how scared he was. He was scared. He's 13. And he was saying how scared he was to sleep at night because he didn't know if someone in his family was going to get shot or if someone was going to die. And that's really sad for a 13-year-old, And he was saying that his skateboard got stolen, his basketball got stolen. Sometimes he gets in fights with the people down there, and he said it's just really rough. So at the ice cream shop, we just got to sit down and pray with him, and we kind of talked things through. And I said, Evanson, how are you doing with God? How's that going? He's like, well, I pray at night, and my Bible, we have it put away in storage because I don't want to get it stolen. I'm like, oh gosh. And he's like, yeah, I'm really sad because I haven't been able to read the Bible and catch up with that. And he was just really sad. And so we took him home, and we saw where he was living, and it's underneath a blue tarp. And we looked inside, and one of the far corners they have some canned goods, and then they have like some blankets on the floor. But the whole family of 5 just sleeps there together, and it was really sad how it looked. Now also we noticed on his feet that he had these little burns, and we asked, what happened to your feet? He said, well, I had a bike wreck, and they really didn't look like bike scratches or anything like that. So we don't know if he's getting abused or not by his family or by anybody in the community. But anyway, so he just it looked like the joy just kind of dropped from him. And so that week I didn't really get to see him that much because of his situation. And so the next Sunday he came back to church, and I got to sit down with him, and I was just praying with him, and I was talking to him, and just trying to encourage him the best I could. And he's like, "Thank you, Malachi. I'm so glad you're here, and I've missed you a lot, and my birthday's coming up." And I'm like, "Oh yeah?" Yeah. He's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna turn 13." I'm like, "Oh, nice." And so he had to go early that day. And a couple of us from the church, we were like, well, what can we do for Evanson for his birthday, So one of the ladies at the church, Claudia, she has an apartment with a pool on the top of her apartment. It's really nice. She said, well, we can rent that out and have a party for Evanson. So we're like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. So we just get a few balloons and a little decoration, and we have a party for Evanson. Someone makes a cake and puts his name on it, and Evanson didn't ask for any presents or anything like that, but a couple of people asked him, like, what's something that you want for your birthday? He's like, well, I just want some shoes. I want some shoes, or like, some different clothes. I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. So I got him some shoes, and a couple of people got him some shirts and things like that. And so we have this party for Evanson. So we get to the party, and he's looking all around him. He's like, is this for me? He's like, this place is so fancy. And it was just a couple balloons, and a little bit of decorations, but he was so thankful. He's never had anything like that. And especially with what he's going through right now, like he was like, I don't deserve this, and he didn't really know how to thank us. We're like, you don't have to thank us. We're doing this for you, and we love you, and we care for you. And he got his shoes, and he was just like, what? And they were just shoes from Walmart, and he was just so grateful for everything he got. And through this party, people were still encouraging him. They're like, you know what, God's got this, and he's got his hand on you, and he's going to take care of you even through what you're going through. And everybody wrote him a card and wrote something encouraging on it so he could take it home with him and just read it whenever he wanted to. And so after the party, it was Monday, and I got to see him, and he said, Malachi, I thank you so much. This party, it was the best party I ever had, and I'm just so thankful, and I'm thankful for Pavat and how they love me and how they treat me and care for me, and thank you for just being here for me. And he's like, I know you had to go back home, but I understand now, and it's okay. And he's like, I'm going to be praying, and I may not be able to read my Bible, but I'm praying a lot. And I gotta tell him that I'm praying for him a lot too. And it's hard to kind of put on Facebook, please pray for Evanson, because his family has a Facebook and he has a Facebook. So I don't know if it'd be offensive or not, but please, if you ever think about it, please pray for Effinson and his family and for his situation down there. And please pray for Hawaii, because, as beautiful it is, it's a dark place, and there's a lot that needs to be done down there. So before I left, RJ had come up to me, and he sat Anna Claire and I down, and he said, what are you thinking about this next summer? And we're like, well, I don't know. He's like, well, the church and the leaders of the church, we've been praying for you guys, that you guys would come back and serve. Like, you guys have created this, you have started this ministry with the children's group and the youth group, and we really want you to come back and continue it. So Anna Claire and I just looked at each other, we're like, why are we starting a ministry? And he's like, yeah, you guys started a ministry, and it's grown, and it's strong, and we just want you to come back. And if God has other plans, I understand, but please pray about it. And so the next day before we left, we're like, yeah, we think we'll come back. And it's just really amazing what God has been doing down there. He's brought a bunch of people together, and he's definitely been glorified through it. So yeah, be praying for Papa'a and for Effinson and all that's going on down there. I am going back to Oahu this summer and keep doing what I'm doing, and so hopefully, yeah, thank you.